Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed we do. I mean, first of all, I think on all of our minds is what the hell is happening with all of these things that we are now seeing in the sky and getting shot down? What are they? Were they there before and we just didn't know about it? Crazy Pentagon press conference yesterday where they're like, we can't rule out aliens. So we're going to go deep into all of that because it is in our wheelhouse and specifically in Saagar's wheelhouse. So we'll break all of that down for you. Also, we have some big 2024 news. Nikki Haley apparently jumping in the race this week. We've got a sneak peek at her first ad that she's going to be putting out. And we also have new war of words between Trump and Ron DeSantis. Apparently, the public nickname is Ron DeSanctimonious. The private nickname is Meatball Ron.
Devastating.
So, yes.
Devastating.
So we'll talk about that. We also have some pretty extraordinary comments from Brazil's President Lula with Joe Biden about Ukraine, and also new indications that Russia is plotting a new offensive there. We have someone who is now accusing Mr. Beast of being ableist. You're going to enjoy listening to this piece. And we also have someone who is on the ground in Ohio, is from that region of Ohio where that Norfolk Southern train was derailed. And they ended up doing a quote unquote controlled release of the chemicals there that has resulted in a just catastrophic environmental devastation. A lot of questions there over residents are actually safe to come back to their homes. So we'll get into that as well. But let's go ahead and start with whatever is going on above us in the skies right now.
It has been one of the most insane 10 days in modern history for our airspace, for shoot downs. The NORAD commander actually said yesterday it's the first time ever that we've been shooting down objects in our skies, literally in American history. So let that sink in. We've had now 4 shoot downs in the last 11 days. Let's go and put this up there on the screen. Since we last saw you, the first object which was shot down was off the Alaskan coast over the Aleutian Islands. So this object was downed at 40,000 feet and posed a, quote, reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. President Biden, all he would say about it is, quote, it was a success, and the object was shot down somewhere over the islands and allegedly crashed on ice. Now, to this, what we know right now, this object, which we will get to some of the characteristics of the object itself, has not yet been recovered by U.S. investigators, despite initial promises that they would do so. They're blaming it on the weather. I mean, you know, you could empathize with that. It's pretty cold out there in Alaska. It literally landed out on the ice, so they're having some mission to try and go retrieve it. So as of yet, we still have no photo, indication, video, forensics, nothing about this said object. That was obviously one that caused a lot of consternation because it came immediately after the balloon. But then, lo and behold, on February 11th, just 2 days ago, let's go and put this up there on the screen, perhaps the most shocking one yet to date was Prime Minister Justin Trudeau revealing, quote, I ordered the takedown of an unidentified object that violated Canadian airspace. NORAD Command, the North American Air Defense, shot down this object over the Yukon territory. Canadian and U.S. aircraft were scrambled, and a U.S. F-22 fired at the object. So this was an object that was right above the Yukon territory in Canada, scrambled by the Canadians and by the Americans. Eventually, the U.S. F-22 downs it. Now, here's the thing with these objects. With the Alaskan one, we haven't yet received any initial indication. We've got some conflicting reports about what it looked like. With the Canadian one, though, we are looking at something that's very interesting. We have some pilots that apparently have been talking behind the scenes with media outlets saying that the object that was shot down interfered with sensors, and some pilots claim to have seen no identifiable propulsion on the object that shot down over Canada. This was described on CNN over the weekend. Just take a listen to that.
Those pilots, we have learned, have given very conflicting accounts of what they actually experienced, with some pilots saying that the object interfered with the plane's sensors, other pilots saying that they didn't really experience that, other pilots saying that when they looked at the object, they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air, cruising at that altitude of about 40,000 feet. So this has all added to the Pentagon's wariness of describing in more detail what this object actually is.
immediately after the Canadian object, there was another indication. Let's go and put this up there on the screen. Over north central Montana, a quote-unquote NOTAM was issued, calling National Defense Airspace over Montana. That was one of the places where we have an intercontinental ballistic missile base. Representative Matt Rosendale of Montana put out this statement, quote, "I am in constant communication with NORCOM. They have just advised me. They have confidence there is an object. It was not an anomaly." Now, the reason why is that after this NOTAM was issued, they called a false alarm, Krystal, and they said, oh, actually, the object, it was an anomaly. It wasn't there.
Right.
Well, that turns out not to have been the case. The object was there. We actually had lost track of the object until it was then shot down yesterday. So let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen, bringing us to our final shoot down. The final NOTAM
So
that
far.
happened. Yeah, so far. That's a good point. Final NOTAM, it was issued, closing over Lake Huron and Lake Michigan. Eventually, that object was downed. According to what we know now, U.S. representatives who've been briefed by the Pentagon, that object was the same one that was seen over Montana. This object was actually shot down at a distance much lower. It was like 25,000 feet. And this one, apparently, the pilots say, had an octagonal shape. So, if for those who are keeping track, I've put this together. It's a real war on geometry. We've got an octagon. We've got a cylinder. We've got something else. Nobody knows what happened over Alaska. Some of them have no visible means of propulsion. They're flying all over the place, 40,000 feet, 45,000 feet, 20,000 feet. It was eventually shot down. Any questions? Yeah, I have
a lot
of questions. What's happening here? So, look, we're about to talk with a great guest, Tom Rogan, an old friend of the show. He's somebody very tapped into this. He's for UFO people, you will know Tom. He's done some great reporting on this. Now, the reason why, and I thought about this all the way back from kind of the beginning when we were talking about the balloon, which is Christopher Mellon, former Assistant Secretary of Defense, another person very big in the UFO community, has been talking about this for a long time. Consider this reality. This isn't a new phenomenon. We just recalibrated our sensors.
Right.
So what they've been talking about, Krystal, is, and Christopher Mellon has said this, look, we gather all this data. But the way that we decipher that data is what tells us everything. US, NORAD, radar, sensors, and all that, they're calibrated for enemy aircraft. They were not calibrated for these smaller balloons and other type of objects. Hence why, whenever we found out that the Trump administration, during that time, that there were 2 Chinese overflights of balloons that happened at that time,
right,
they only discovered that after the fact because they rolled through the past data. So here's what happened. After the balloon, they have recalibrated the data to actually make it sensitive to identify anything as small as a Volkswagen Beetle car. That's one of the reasons why a lot of what we're discovering are quote-unquote car size objects. So Tom put this out there. Let's put this up there on the screen. He says, quote, likely all of these scrambles for objects are not because the objects just started flying around, but because NORAD expanded its radar hits of interest to include balloons and smaller objects, and also it's political, so the White House told the Pentagon to tell NORAD, intercept immediately if there is any doubt. Now, once again, we have zero indication of what these objects are. I will leave it up to all of the imagination. I wouldn't dare speculate here on the show, but you can tell I'm excited. At the same time, it's a global phenomenon, people. Let's put this up there. We've had 2 separate instances now. The Uruguayan Air Force saying that there were, quote, flashing lights in the sky over their airspace, and actually China scrambling some jets and saying that they were intercepting some sort of unidentified flying object spotted near the Yellow Sea. So it's almost like a UFO swarm, if you will. And then the final, my personal favorite, while we were all watching the Super Bowl, or some people were watching the Super Bowl. By the way, condolences to my girlfriend's father, big Eagles fan. I feel bad for the guy this morning. But congratulations to one of our cameramen who's one of the biggest Chiefs fans that you will ever meet. Congratulations, Colvin. Let's go ahead and play this clip. During the Super Bowl, the Pentagon was still giving a press conference about the object that we shot down yesterday over Lake Huron, where he will not rule out the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Let's take a listen.
Have you ruled out aliens or extraterrestrials? And if so, why? Because that is what everyone is asking us right now.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Helene. I'll let the intel community and the counterintelligence community figure that out. I haven't ruled out anything at this point. We continue to assess every threat or potential threat unknown that approaches North America with an attempt to identify it.
I haven't ruled out anything. Extraordinary. That is one of the most extraordinary quotes that I've ever heard. Ever. So, I mean, look, I don't know what to say. Again, my personal bias has been that we have no idea what's been flying around up there for a long time. Also, here's the other thing. Everyone's like, oh, it's clearly balloons. If they were balloons, they would say so. All right? Like, it was the Chinese balloon. We could see it from the naked eye. Yeah. We had the video. If there was even a string, they would tell us it was a balloon. They're not saying it's a balloon. The people who are, one tiny little, one little string hanging off that thing, they'd be like, oh, it was a balloon. Don't worry about it. The reason why they're telling us they don't know is because they don't know. And from the pilots, look, these pilots, they're standing up for themselves. They're coming out and they're telling everybody exactly what they saw. They're like, look, we got no visible. Everyone's like, oh, well, balloons don't have visible means of propulsion. That's actually not true. All modern spy balloons are equipped with propulsion. That was including the Chinese balloon, by the way. Part of why the explanation for why it blew off course was ludicrous, because they actually have motors on board, including our spy balloons. Okay, so let's put that one out the window. Two is in terms of the descriptions of these objects. We've got cylindrical, we've got octagon, if you will. Consider also that broadly conforms with some of the past UFO videos that have been put out from 2017 onwards. We have the gimbal video, we have the triangle UFO, we've got pyramid videos that have come out. You know, so there's some dispute on the pyramid UFO. But look, the point is that we have had irregular shapes, geometric shapes like this that have been well described by pilots who have spotted these things. The Tic Tac as well, also cylindrical. So this is an extraordinary event. And here's the thing, Krystal, I know there's a lot of skepticism from people, and rightfully, I think it should be. There's a lot of talks, is this a psyop? All of that. I am going to err on the side of incompetence and what I've always erred on with UFOs, which is they're not trying to spin you. They have no idea what's going on. That's always been my theory. And they're too afraid to tell us. We don't know what's going on up there.
Yes. Yeah. It really does expose. So I buy the idea that, okay, after the Chinese spy balloon situation, and that was like an embarrassing situation with the Biden administration, they recalibrate the radars, and now they're picking up all of these things that it's not that they weren't there before, it's that we just weren't detecting them before. That part I buy, but that still leaves the gigantic question of, okay, well then what the hell are they? Look, maybe they're all Chinese. Maybe they're all from the same sort of like Chinese spy program. Taiwan is out saying, listen, this happens to us all the time, by the way. China is out this morning now accusing us of flying a bunch of spy balloons over their territory. They're like, they've done this to us 10 times, which I don't doubt, by the way. So they're like, why are you so upset when you're doing the same stuff to us over here? Could be all Chinese, but we just don't know. And to your point, I mean, the first one was very obvious. It literally had Chinese characters on it. Like it was not in doubt. It was clearly a balloon, clearly had Chinese characters on it. So why are they having so much trouble describing what these are and explaining to the American people what is going on? And there's other little questions too, like why did Trudeau need us to get involved in shooting down the one over their territory? What's that all about? And then lastly, and then we'll go ahead and bring in our guest. So maybe, I'm sure he doesn't have any definitive answers to these either, but he has a lot of insight into what might be going on here. There's an interesting edit in the New York Times regarding the extraterrestrial piece. So before that press conference with the NORAD commander, when he said, listen, we can't rule anything out, they had this line in the New York Times article that said the incursions seem to become so common that Biden administration officials have found themselves issuing private assurances that there is no evidence that they involve extraterrestrial activity, but officials also acknowledge privately that the longer they're unable to provide a public explanation for the provenance of the objects, the more speculation grows. So revealing their little piece of inside reporting that even Biden administration officials are having to tell people around them, like, I really don't think that it's extraterrestrial activity, which is remarkable in and of itself, but also an acknowledgement there that they can't really rule anything out. Now, once the press conference happened and they got that answer from the NORAD commander, they updated with that answer and actually removed that piece about the internal Biden administration sort of deliberations and the way that they've been having to issue guidance privately to people around them. But it is just a remarkable situation. More questions than answers at this point.
We have no idea. And the other thing is, we've had some cleanup, from some of these officials. They'll come out and they'll be like, well, it resembled a balloon. It's like, well, okay, well, was it a balloon or not? And once again, none of the debris has been recovered from any of these sites, which I don't know if you remember this. We had that Chinese balloon in a boat like 3 hours later. Like there was video literally of like guys on the scene with high resolution cameras who were capturing U.S. Navy divers bringing the balloon into the boat. So look, Yukon, I get that it's far away. Last time I checked, we created a thing called helicopters. So, you know, I'm pretty sure that we'd be able to just fly to wherever the thing is and pick it up and then
we have bases there too.
Yeah, and then yes, and what? We have bases all over Alaska. You're really telling me that we can rescue somebody in a Coast Guard waters where you can't go out on the ice and go grab this thing, or what? We don't have drones that can get high resolution footage. The sun doesn't shine up in Alaska. Same in Lake, you know, I was saying, you know, some amateurs who live around that area. I'm not saying you should do this, but if you were to get in your boat and go check it out for us, that would be great. Because I would really like to know what the hell is going on. No photos, no forensics. All we have is, actually, this is the real disservice that I'll end on before we bring Tom in. All we have are anonymous leaks. Pilots say this, some say that. Oh, well, it resembled a balloon, but it wasn't definitively a balloon. Officials speculate. Enough. You cannot have this. I mean, this is one of the most, again, historically, this has never happened before in American history. 3 subsequent shootdowns in less than a week all over U.S. airspace of completely unidentified objects. And where is the president? The guy doesn't give us a press conference. I mean, people are rightfully scared and they're like trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.